Welcome! I'm truly grateful to have you here. Please, make yourself comfortable and take your time. This story was crafted with care, dedication, and deep respect for your attention. I hope it brings you joy, reflection, and perhaps even a touch of nostalgia. Once again, thank you for sharing a moment of your day with me. The year is 1607. You find yourself in a tiny, cramped cottage, tucked away in the English countryside, far from prying eyes. A raw, biting wind sneaks through the cracks in the wattle and daub walls, chilling your exposed skin. You pull your worn wool cloak tighter, trying to ward off the insidious cold that seeps into your bones. The air hangs heavy with the scent of damp earth, stale hearth smoke, and the nervous sweat of half a dozen men. You're huddled close, so close you can feel the tremor in the man's knee beside you, a silent pulse of anxiety. You try to focus on the flickering candlelight dancing across the grim faces around you. Their eyes, shadowed and deep-set, reflect a shared weariness, a profound dissatisfaction that has brought you all to this clandestine gathering. A hushed murmur passes through the small group, words swallowed by the shadows, but their intent is clear: resistance. You watch as a man, older, with lines etched deep around his mouth, slowly extends a calloused hand towards a worn map spread across the rough-hewn table. His finger hovers over a distant, uncertain horizon. You feel the weight of unspoken promises, the silent commitment hardening within each gaze. The low rumble of voices, just above a whisper, weaves a tapestry of frustrated hope and desperate resolve. You sense the risk, the palpable danger that lingers just outside the cottage walls, a constant, unseen presence. One wrong word, one careless glance, and everything you've risked could unravel. Your own breath hitches, catching in your throat as a wave of apprehension washes over you, mingling with a defiant spark deep within your chest. You shift your weight, the floorboards groaning faintly under your heavy boots, a sound that feels deafening in the charged silence that momentarily falls. You meet the eyes of a woman across the table. Her expression is a mirror of your own, fear mixed with fierce, unyielding conviction. The chill in the room isn't just from the English winter. It's the cold dread of defiance, of daring to believe in a different path, away from the familiar confines, towards an unknown, unforgiving sea. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe. I'm curious. Where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there? Share in the comments. Sometimes, the greatest warmth comes not from a fire, but from the shared, silent determination of those who refuse to be frozen in place. You duck into a narrow London alley, the air immediately thickening with a sour, acrid stench. It's a noxious mix of damp rot, overflowing privies, animal waste, and a metallic tang, a truly hostile scent that clings to your worn wool cloak and invades your nostrils, making your stomach clench with involuntary repulsion. The ceaseless roar of the main street instantly dampens, replaced by the unsettling trickle of unseen filth moving along the gutters and the distant, muffled clamor of a city indifferent to your hurried presence. Your heavy boots find uncertain footing on the slick, uneven cobblestones, each step requiring careful balance. You press closer to the grimy brick wall, its rough, cold surface seeping through the fabric of your sleeve. Overhead, a jagged, narrow sliver of gray sky is barely visible between the leaning, sagging tenements, their upper stories almost touching, creating a claustrophobic tunnel. Drips of cold, murky water plop onto your head from leaky gutters, making you flinch and hunch your shoulders. You peer into the perpetual gloom, your eyes straining to adjust, searching for the specific shadow or marked door you were told to seek. Every dark doorway looks the same, forbidding, indistinguishable, and potentially dangerous. A sudden, sharp scuttling sound makes you jump, your heart lurching. You instinctively tense, your hand hovering near the hilt of the small dagger you carry beneath your cloak, a silent reassurance. It's just a rat, disappearing with startling speed into a mound of festering refuse, but the moment leaves a bitter, metallic taste in your mouth. A reminder of the unseen life thriving in this squalor. You quicken your pace, trying to walk with deceptive purpose but also with heightened caution. Every shadowed nook feels like a potential hiding place, every distant cough or sudden shout a warning. You pass by figures hunched deep in doorways, their faces obscured by hoods or the profound lack of light, their eyes seeming to follow your movement for a beat too long. You feel their palpable indifference, yet also a vague, underlying threat, a sense that you are an outsider, an intruder. Further into the labyrinthine passage, you spot a faint, unsteady flicker of light from a single, uncurtained window casting dancing shadows. You approach it warily, your senses on high alert, discerning subtle movement from within. A heavy, wooden door, scarred and ancient, stands slightly ajar next to it, its dark maw inviting yet menacing. You push it open just enough to see inside. The small, cramped room beyond is dim, illuminated by a single sputtering candle stub, its flame struggling against the oppressive air. A man sits hunched at a rough-hewn table, his back to you, a silhouette against the flickering light. He doesn't turn, but you feel his immediate awareness. He slowly raises a calloused hand, beckoning you in without a word, his posture a strange mix of resigned patience and quiet urgency. You step inside, the penetrating chill of the alley slowly replaced by the slightly warmer, yet equally heavy air of this confined space. The ancient door groans softly as it swings shut behind you, sealing you off from the hostile world outside, but trapping you within this new, unknown encounter. The distinct scent of stale tobacco, cheap ale, and unfulfilled promises hangs heavy here, a different kind of hostility, more subtle, more insidious, just as suffocating. You stand for a moment, letting your eyes adjust, letting the weight of the city press in around you, feeling the oppressive need for release, for escape, for a new beginning. This city, with its labyrinthine alleys, pervasive grime and unspoken dangers, demands constant vigilance that drains your spirit, leaving you aching for an open space, a clearer horizon, a breath of air that doesn't taste of despair. The biting North Sea wind whips around you, carrying 1,000 smells. Here, in the bustling Dutch port of Rotterdam, the air is a vibrant tapestry of brine, tar, and wet wood, interwoven with the surprising, almost intoxicating aroma of exotic spices from far-off lands. This isn't the heavy, cloying stench of London. This is a fresh, invigorating assault on your senses, a world awake and alive. You push your way through the throng of people on the docks, a kaleidoscope of languages and faces swirling around you. The cacophony is almost overwhelming. The creak and groan of ship timbers, the rhythmic clang of hammers, the shouts of sailors in Dutch, German, and a dozen other tongues, the bleating of tethered sheep, the distant peal of church bells. You feel the constant jostle of bodies, the coarse wool of a passing merchant's cloak brushing your arm, the hurried step of a dock worker nearly tripping you as he shoulders a heavy bale. This chaos, however, feels like freedom. It's a boundless energy, a stark contrast to the stifling silence of clandestine English meetings. You crane your neck, scanning the forest of masts that pierce the gray sky. Tall ships, their sails furled, sway gently at their moorings, their hulls scarred by untold journeys. You trace the intricate rigging with your eyes, imagining the vast, unknown expanses they have traversed, the stories whispered in their sails. A sense of awe and apprehension washes over you. This is the edge of your known world, and beyond it lies the vast, untamed ocean, a formidable barrier, and a terrifying promise. You find your small group near a gangplank, a cluster of familiar faces amidst the foreign bustle. Their eyes, once shadowed with fear in England, now hold a glimmer of anxious hope. You see the subtle relief in their shoulders, the way they breathe a little deeper, a little less guardedly, even as they remain wary. A child from your group, small and bundled, points a gloved finger at a large, unfamiliar flag snapping vigorously in the wind above a ship, her eyes wide, with a mixture of wonder and bewilderment. You try to explain, though the words feel inadequate against the enormity of the moment. This is a temporary haven, a fleeting respite before the real journey begins. You watch as a young woman from your company grips a wooden railing, her knuckles white. Her gaze is fixed not on the bustling port, but on the distant, churning waters where the river meets the sea. You can almost feel her conflicted emotions, the exhilarating pull of the unknown clashing with the quiet ache of leaving everything familiar behind. You feel a similar stirring within yourself, a deep, unsettling mix of excitement and trepidation. This Dutch port, with its vibrant chaos and welcoming anonymity, represents a precious, fragile moment of liberty. But you know it's only a waypoint. The true test, the ultimate control, lies ahead, across that boundless, unforgiving ocean. The raw, untamed possibility of a new life calls to you, demanding everything. The taste of salty air on your tongue, the thrum of 1,000 lives moving around you, it all whispers of freedom. But you know, deep down, that freedom is never truly given. It is always, painstakingly, taken and then fiercely guarded, especially against your own desires. You hear it first, the bright, unburdened laughter of children. It echoes down the cobbled street, a sound that should bring joy, but for you, it carries a subtle, bitter undertone. You step out from the modest dwelling, pulling your simple, dark cloak tighter around you against the cool Dutch air, and see them. Your own son, just a few years past infancy, is chasing a brightly dressed Dutch boy, their tiny wooden shoes clattering rhythmically on the stones. He's calling out in a language that, while familiar now, still feels alien in his mouth. A rapid, lilting Dutch that has become more natural to him than the King's English you speak at home. You watch as he tumbles, laughing, into a pile of autumn leaves, his dark Puritan attire a stark contrast to the vivid yellows and reds of the fallen foliage, and to the cheerful, patterned clothing of the local children. A pang of something sharp, almost like grief, catches in your throat. This isn't the solemn, respectful play you envision for your community, for your future. This is boisterous, uninhibited, and distinctly Dutch. You see the comfortable ease with which he interacts, the way he mimics their gestures, their open smiles. He belongs here, in this tolerant, vibrant world, more than he belongs to the rigid structure you are trying to preserve. You feel the slow, insidious creep of worry, This freedom, this embrace of other cultures and beliefs, is exactly what you fled England to find. Yet here it manifests not as pure liberty for your own convictions, but as a subtle erosion of them, particularly in the pliable minds of your young. It's a sweet poison, this easy acceptance, dissolving the very foundations you hope to build. You recall the taste of a bitter herb tea you drank this morning, its sharp notes lingering, and it feels like a metaphor for this moment, the initial promise of a new life curdling into a quiet dismay. An older woman from your group, her face etched with similar concerns, stands beside you, her gaze also fixed on the children. She doesn't speak, but you feel the shared weight of her unspoken fears. Her hand instinctively goes to the tightly woven shawl around her shoulders, a gesture of self-preservation, of holding on. You both understand that this, tolerance, offers respite from persecution, but it also dilutes the very essence of what makes you, you. It's a slow, gentle pressure, not the brutal fist of the king, but just as effective in shaping minds and hearts away from your chosen path. You watch as your son pauses, looking back at you, a fleeting moment of connection. His eyes, though still innocent, hold a spark of a world you barely recognize. He waves, a broad, uncomplicated gesture, before turning back to the game. You offer a strained smile in return, a mask for the complex emotions swirling within you. Love for your child, fear for his soul, and a deepening conviction that this wasn't the true haven you sought. This was simply a pause, a temporary harbor, before you must once again seek a place where your particular brand of faith and control could finally take root, untainted and uncompromised. The laughter of the children, so bright and free, tastes bitter on your soul. The air around you is thick, heavy with the cloying scent of unwashed bodies, stale bilge water, and the faint, sweet and sour reek of vomit. You are in the dark, cramped 'tween deck of the Mayflower, a wooden coffin pitching relentlessly on the vast, unforgiving Atlantic. Every single breath you take feels like an effort, pulling in air that is both suffocatingly warm and impossibly damp. You brace yourself, instinctively gripping the rough timber beam above your head as the ship lurches violently to port, sending a cascade of loose items skittering across the floorboards. The constant, ominous groan of the ship's timbers is a living sound, a deep, resonant moan that seems to emanate from the very heart of the vessel, speaking of strain and impending fracture. It's a sound that drills into your skull, vibrating through your bones, a constant reminder of the fragile shell separating you from the icy, crushing depths below. You can barely see beyond the immediate circle of pallid faces huddled around you in the dim, lamp-lit gloom. Everyone is packed in, shoulder to shoulder, each face etched with a desperate weariness, some tinged green with seasickness. You feel the clammy skin of the woman next to you brush your arm, a fleeting, intimate contact born of sheer proximity. A child whimpers softly in the darkness, a sound that cuts through the creaking wood and crashing waves, echoing the collective anxiety. You glance over at your own son, nestled against your side, his small face pale, his eyes wide and unblinking, fixed on some unseen point in the rocking darkness. You feel his tiny hand clench your tunic, a fragile anchor in this violent uncertainty. The cold, slick touch of condensation on the timbers above is a constant presence, dripping erratically onto your face and clothing. You try to shift, to find a more comfortable position, but there is no comfort to be found. Every muscle in your body is tense, fighting against the ceaseless motion, trying to maintain some semblance of stability. You taste the persistent salt spray on your lips, even down in this confined space, a phantom taste carried on the dense air. Suddenly, a wave, larger and more powerful than the rest, slams into the hull with a deafening crash that reverberates through the entire ship. You feel the vessel tremble, shudder, as if struck by a giant's fist. A gasp ripples through the crowded space, followed by a momentary, terrifying silence, broken only by the frantic squeal of strained wood. You squeeze your eyes shut for a second, a silent prayer forming on your lips, picturing the vast, churning abyss just outside these groaning walls. You open them again, scanning the faces around you, seeing the raw fear, the profound helplessness, yet also a flicker of shared resolve. This voyage isn't just a physical journey. It's a test of wills, a brutal forging in the crucible of the sea. The groaning timbers speak of struggle, and you know you must match their endurance, not just for survival, but for the unwavering belief that drives you onward to a new world. The rhythmic creak and shudder of this vessel, the endless toss of the sea, it all becomes a part of you. It carves away comfort, leaving behind only the stark, undeniable reality of your purpose, sharp and unyielding. The faint, metallic tang of ink mixes with the pervasive stench of the ship, a scent you now associate with both desperation and unwavering resolve. You stand in the cramped cabin, swaying world of creaking timbers and shifting shadows. The air is cold, despite the closeness of bodies, a chill that seems to come from the vast ocean outside and the weighty purpose within. You watch as a quill, surprisingly steady in the hands of a weary-faced man, scratches across the rough parchment. The scraping sound is magnified by the close quarters, each stroke a deliberate mark, binding the uncertain future to a rigid, present intent. You feel the constant heave of the ship beneath your feet, a gentle yet inescapable reminder of your isolation, miles from any recognizable authority. That isolation, however, isn't leading to anarchy. Instead, it's giving birth to something else, a new, self-imposed order. You lean in closer, your eyes tracing the lines of flowing script. It's not a petition for freedom from governance, but a solemn pledge for it on your own terms. It's about creating a civil body politic, a framework built on shared faith, certainly, but also on a deeply ingrained need for absolute control. You hear the low, serious voices of the men around you, murmuring agreements, their faces grimly determined in the flickering lantern light. Their expressions are a mixture of relief, apprehension, and fierce conviction. This isn't just a document. It's a testament to the fact that you didn't leave England just to escape tyranny, but to establish your own equally absolute version of divine and temporal rule. When the parchment is passed to you, it feels heavier than its thinness suggests. The edges are damp, the ink slightly blurred in places from the omnipresent sea air, stained perhaps by a few drops of spray that have found their way into the cabin. You feel the gritty texture of the paper under your thumb, almost like sand. You hesitate for a moment, a fleeting breath of doubt in the magnitude of what you are about to seal. You glance at the other signers. Their eyes meet yours, a silent challenge, an expectation. This isn't a suggestion, it's a mandate. You take the quill, its feather surprisingly soft against your fingers, and carefully add your name to the growing list. The ink spreads, dark and definitive, among the others. It's a moment of profound commitment, a binding contract not just to each other but to a vision of society where dissent will be unwelcome, and obedience paramount. The taste in your mouth is salty, not from the sea, but from the raw, unadulterated power of this collective decision. You've crossed an ocean to escape one form of control, only to meticulously craft another, designed to withstand any challenge, to shape a world precisely to your chosen image. As the last name is added, the document is carefully folded, its purpose sealed. The weight of that salt-stained ink, the tangible proof of shared conviction, feels like an anchor not just for the ship, but for the very foundation of the society you are about to build, one where control, dressed in the guise of godly order, will be the bedrock. The first thing that hits you isn't the cold, though it's sharp enough to steal your breath. It's the silence. A deep, profound, almost physical silence that presses in on your ears unlike anything you've ever known. After weeks of the Mayflower's constant groaning, the crash of waves, the shouts of sailors, this stillness is deafening, disorienting. You step off the makeshift gangplank onto the frozen shore. Your heavy boots crunch on brittle leaves and hard-packed earth. A sound that echoes unnaturally loud in the vast emptiness. The air bites at your exposed face, carrying the clean, sharp scent of pine and something wild, primal, untamed. It's a smell that belongs to no English forest, no Dutch field. It's the smell of a truly new world. You crane your neck, scanning the horizon, and your gaze stretches further than it ever has before. There are no familiar church steeples, no comforting clusters of cottages, no cultivated fields. Instead, an unbroken wall of ancient, towering trees rises before you, their branches skeletal against a cold, pale sky. They stretch endlessly, a dark, impenetrable wilderness that seems to swallow all sound, all light, all human presence. It's immense, daunting, an overwhelming scale that makes you feel impossibly small, a tiny speck against this colossal, indifferent canvas. You feel the ground beneath your feet, solid and unyielding, a stark relief from the ceaseless pitching of the ship, yet it offers no comfort. This is not the familiar earth of home. It feels foreign, ungiving, utterly alien. You shiver, and it's not just from the wind whistling through the bare branches. It's the shock of this raw, untamed vastness, a wilderness that demands not just survival, but an entirely new way of understanding your place in the world. You see the faces of your fellow travelers, equally stunned, equally overwhelmed. Their eyes, once filled with the burning hope of a new beginning, now hold a flicker of profound uncertainty, a nascent fear of this silent, formidable land. You take a deep breath, the cold air scraping your throat. The silence stretches, profound and watchful, challenging your very presence. This is not just a landing. It is an arrival at the edge of comprehension, where the sheer, unyielding scale of nature dwarfs every human endeavor, forcing you to confront your own insignificance. The world you left behind feels impossibly distant, a fading dream. The world before you, silent and immense, feels like a force you must either conquer or be consumed by. This is the promised land, raw and indifferent, demanding everything. The bitter, metallic taste of brackish water coats your tongue, refusing to be dislodged. You swallow again, a dry, rasping sound in the pervasive silence, but it only reinforces the unpleasant sensation. It's not just the water. It's the constant gnawing of hunger in your stomach, a hollow ache that has become a familiar, unwelcome companion. Weeks have passed since you landed, and the brutal New England winter has claimed more than half your company. You shiver, pulling the threadbare blanket tighter around your shoulders. But the cold seeps in, relentless and unforgiving. You're huddled close to the meager fire, its smoke burning your eyes and throat, offering little real warmth against the icy grip of December. The air carries the faint, lingering scent of damp pine needles and the acrid smell of desperation, a scent that seems to cling to everyone in the camp. You watch as a thin, gaunt woman across the fire tries to coax a few more embers from the dying flames. Her movements are slow, deliberate, each action a monumental effort. Her eyes are sunken, shadowed with fatigue and a deep-seated grief that mirrors your own. You've seen too many faces fade, too many bodies succumb to the harsh realities of this promised land. The silence of the vast wilderness now feels less like awe and more like a predator, patiently waiting. Your stomach clenches again, a sharp, insistent pang. You haven't eaten a full meal in days, and the meager rations of hardtack and dried meat are nearly gone. You remember the sweet, ripe apples from England, the rich stews from Holland, and the memory feels like a cruel, distant dream. Here, survival is a daily battle, each breath a victory. You see your son, huddled against his mother, his face pale and drawn. He doesn't complain, but you see the desperate hunger in his eyes, a silent plea that tears at your very soul. You reach out, your hand rough and chapped from labor, and stroke his head, feeling the fine, soft hair under your cold fingers. It's a small, fleeting comfort in a world stripped bare of nearly everything else. The sound of the wind, a mournful howl through the skeletal trees just beyond the flimsy palisade, feels like a dirge. You listen intently, every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, sending a jolt of anxiety through you. The unfamiliar sounds of this wilderness are no longer mysterious. They are simply menacing. The hunger isn't just a physical sensation, it's a constant mental torment, chipping away at your resolve, testing the very core of your faith. Yet, even in this profound desolation, a stubborn spark of defiance remains. You came here for control, to forge a society rooted in your beliefs, and that purpose, however fragile now, is all that keeps you putting one starved foot in front of the other, pushing through the cold, the hunger, the relentless despair. This gnawing emptiness in your gut, the raw taste of survival on your tongue, it strips away all embellishment, all comfort, leaving only the stark, undeniable will to endure for the sake of the future you are determined to build. A gust of wind, sharp as a physical blow, whips around the corner of the hastily built common house, driving crystalline shards of snow against your face. You flinch, pulling the worn woolen cap lower over your ears, but the cold finds every exposed patch of skin, biting with an intensity that seems beyond anything you experienced in England or Holland. It's not just cold. It's a relentless seething force, an enemy that seeks to seep into your very bones. You stumble through the deepening snow, each step a struggle. Your breath, visible in thick white clouds, is ragged from the effort. The ground beneath the snow is rock hard, frozen solid, and your boots slip precariously on patches of ice. The air smells clean, yes, but also sterile, devoid of the familiar sense of human activity, replaced by the pervasive, biting scent of raw winter. The only sounds are the howling wind and the distant, lonely creak of trees swaying against an unforgiving sky. You see the dark, huddled shapes of your fellow settlers, moving slowly, painstakingly, through the blizzard. They are ghosts in the swirling white, their figures bowed against the onslaught, each one carrying the visible burden of exhaustion and privation. You watch a man ahead of you falter, nearly falling, only catching himself at the last moment by grabbing a nearby tree branch. His shoulders shake, whether from cold or despair you cannot tell. You feel a sudden, profound empathy, a recognition of the shared, brutal struggle that binds you all. The small, rough-hewn dwellings you've managed to erect offer scant protection. Smoke from their chimneys struggles against the wind, often driven back down, reminding you of the meager warmth within. You think of your own family, huddled inside, perhaps shivering even now. The concern is a constant knot in your stomach, a counterpoint to the physical ache of cold. Your hands, stiff and clumsy in your thick mittens, ache with a persistent chill that seems to defy all efforts to warm them. You reach the edge of the small clearing, the wind momentarily abating, and pause to gather your strength. The landscape stretches out, a desolate expanse of white and skeletal gray, an endless silent testament to the raw, untamed power of this new world. This isn't just winter, it's an adversary, testing the limits of human endurance, attempting to strip away not just your comfort, but your very will. Yet even as the cold bites and the wind howls its challenge, a fierce, almost desperate resolve hardens within you. You came here to build, to control, to carve out a godly society from this wilderness, and this brutal test only strengthens that unyielding purpose. You will not be broken. The raw, biting wind, the profound silence of this land, they are not just elements of nature. They are a constant, unwavering voice, asking if your will is truly stronger than their unforgiving power. The sharp, hacking cough shatters the fragile quiet of the early morning. It comes from the cabin next to yours, through the thin, insubstantial wall of rough-hewn timber, a raw, ragged sound that scrapes at your nerves and sends a fresh wave of dread through you. It's the cough of your neighbor, John, a sound you've heard too many times now, each time growing weaker, more desperate. You lie on your hard straw pallet, pulling the coarse wool blanket tighter around your chin, but it offers no comfort against the chill seeping from the floorboards, nor against the insidious fear that grips your chest. The small, cramped cabin smells of stale wood smoke, damp earth, and the faint, unsettling scent of sickness that seems to permeate everything. Your own breath comes out in small, shallow puffs, almost as if you're trying to breathe silently, to avoid disturbing the fragile peace, or perhaps to avoid drawing the sickness closer. You listen to the rasping breaths, the strained gasps for air that follow each spasm of coughing. It's a haunting rhythm, a soundtrack to the agonizing toll this first winter is taking. You try to remember John's face from before the voyage, before the winter, robust and hopeful. Now, you picture him pale, feverish, his eyes sunken, just as you've seen too many others. The thought makes a bitter taste rise in your mouth, a mix of despair and a grim determination. A child whimpers softly from the corner of your cabin, her sleep, disturbed by the sounds. You reach out, blindly finding her small hand, offering a silent reassurance that feels inadequate, almost a lie. You can feel the tremor in your own hand, a testament to the constant tension you live under. Every day brings another loss, another grave dug in the frozen earth, and each sound of illness is a fresh wound. You hear the muffled stirrings of John's wife, a soft rustling that suggests frantic, weary care. There are no remedies left, no healers with cures for this consumption that seems to spread like wildfire through your small, isolated community. All you have is prayer, and the grim knowledge that a stronger wind, a deeper cold, a harsher cough could claim anyone at any moment. The sun begins to peek through the tiny, greased paper window, casting weak, watery light on the rough log walls. But the dawn brings no warmth, no immediate relief. Only the stark reality of another day of struggle, another day of listening. You close your eyes for a moment, the image of John's fading face, and the echo of his cough burned into your mind. This winter isn't just a test of physical endurance. It's a profound spiritual siege. Each cough is a reminder of the fragility of life and the overwhelming, primal challenge of simply surviving long enough to build the controlled, godly society you risked everything for. The sound of a neighbor's suffering, so close, so raw, it becomes a mirror, reflecting your own vulnerability and strengthening your resolve to hold on to control, even when life itself seems to slip through your fingers. The scent hits you first, sharp and earthy. Wood smoke, cured deerskin, and something else, something wild and unfamiliar, utterly distinct from the damp wool and stale hearth smoke you've grown accustomed to. You stand rigid, clutching the rough timber of your musket, your knuckles white, as a figure emerges from the dense forest line. He moves with a silent grace that makes your heavy wool clothing feel cumbersome and loud. As he draws closer, you see the texture of his garments, soft, supple deerskin, fringed and beaded, moving like a second skin. It's a stark contrast to your own scratchy, coarse wool, a world apart in fabric, in form, in spirit. You feel the tremor of unease, a prickle of primal fear along your spine, at this sudden, unannounced presence in the very place you've claimed. He stops, just beyond bowshot, his dark eyes meeting yours without challenge, but with an unwavering intensity. He's taller than most men you know, his posture erect, his presence commanding. You try to discern his expression, but it's unreadable. A calm, almost curious gaze that makes you feel both observed and utterly alien. You notice the intricate patterns woven into his clothes, the shell beads gleaming faintly, the carefully worked moccasins on his feet that make no sound on the frozen earth. Everything about him speaks of a deep connection to this land, a belonging you, with your foreign wool and heavy boots, can only dream of. A low murmur passes through your small group of armed men, a tense, nervous energy. You feel the collective anxiety, the grip tightening on every musket. This is a moment of profound uncertainty, a delicate balance between potential threat and an unknown opportunity. You taste the dry, dusty fear in your mouth, a sensation that has become all too familiar in this unforgiving wilderness. Then he speaks. The words are guttural, melodic, unlike any language you have ever heard. You understand nothing, yet the tone is calm, unthreatening. He gestures with an open hand, a gesture that seems to invite rather than warn. Your initial reaction is suspicion, a protective instinct honed by months of hardship and fear. You look at the men beside you, their faces mirroring your confusion, your apprehension. One of them slowly lowers his musket, a cautious act of de-escalation, but his eyes remain fixed, wary. You remain still, your fingers still tight around your weapon, but a different sensation begins to stir within you. It's a flicker of curiosity, a recognition that this being, so utterly foreign, holds the key to understanding this land that has so brutally tested your will. The contrast between his supple deerskin and your stiff wool isn't just about clothing. It's about two worlds meeting, two vastly different ways of living and perceiving. And in that moment, standing on the edge of your fledgling settlement, you know that this encounter, this unexpected intersection of alien textures and worlds, will reshape everything. The texture of deerskin against wool, the silent grace against your clumsy stance, it's a living lesson in how little you truly know of this land, and how much you must learn or risk everything. The scent of wood smoke and roasting game hangs heavy in the air, rich and unfamiliar, mingling with the faint, comforting aroma of baked bread from your own ovens. You sit on a rough-hewn log, a strange mix of discomfort and profound relief washing over you during this shared meal that feels more like an uneasy truce than a celebration. A piece of roasted fowl, dark and savory, is placed before you. You lift it to your mouth, its warmth a welcome sensation against the lingering chill of winter. The taste is utterly new, gamey, earthy, unlike any bird you've eaten in England. It's undeniably nourishing, a blessed relief after months of gnawing hunger, yet it carries an unsettling flavor, a reminder of the vast, wild difference of this land and its people. You chew slowly, deliberately, acutely aware of every movement, every glance. Around a large, crackling fire, the faces of your people and the native people are illuminated by the flickering flames. The native men, dressed in their supple deerskins, sit with an innate dignity, their expressions mostly unreadable, yet observant. Their movements are fluid, economical, a stark contrast to the stiff, formal postures of your own company. You feel their gaze upon you, a silent assessment that makes the small hairs on your neck prickle. Are they judging your coarse wool, your gaunt faces, your clumsy attempts at settlement? You watch as a native man offers a calabash filled with something golden and thick. He gestures for you to drink. You hesitate, the unfamiliar smell making you wary, but the rules of diplomacy demand you accept. You lift the gourd to your lips. The liquid is sweet, incredibly sweet, with a hint of something earthy and complex. It's unlike anything you've ever tasted, a burst of flavor that momentarily overwhelms your senses. It's pleasant, yes, but also a stark reminder of your vulnerability, your dependence on their knowledge, their resources. This isn't your bounty, it's theirs. The conversations around you are a fractured murmur of translated words, gestures, and long silences. You catch glimpses of understanding, of suspicion, of nascent alliance in the exchange of glances. You try to project an image of strength and civility, but beneath your reserved exterior, a profound sense of uncertainty gnaws at you. This alliance, born of mutual need in the harshness of winter, is fragile. You need their knowledge of this land, their food, their guidance. They, perhaps, see a different kind of opportunity in your presence. You break off another piece of meat, its unfamiliar taste a constant companion to the strange, formal dance of this gathering. This meal isn't just about sustenance. It's about territory, about power, about the slow, careful forging of control in this wild, alien place. The taste in your mouth is complex, a mix of survival, suspicion, and a dawning understanding that true mastery of this land will require far more than faith and conviction. It will demand a delicate, often ruthless, negotiation of power. The unsettling flavors of this diplomatic meal, the tastes of the wild, remind you that control here is not absolute. Not yet. It must be woven, carefully and meticulously, from strands of alliance, suspicion, and undeniable need. The raw, stinging pain of a fresh splinter works its way deep under your thumbnail, a small, persistent agony that matches the dull ache in your back. You wince, trying to dislodge it with your teeth, tasting the metallic tang of blood mixed with the gritty wood. You're hauling another heavy, freshly felled log towards the growing frame of the meeting house, each step a grunt of effort, your muscles screaming in protest. The spring air is still crisp, but it carries the heavy scent of sawdust and fresh-cut pine, a smell that now defines your daily existence. Your hands are rough, calloused, scarred by countless nicks and cuts. Your clothes are perpetually stained with pine sap and dirt, a stark contrast to the tidy, unblemished attire you once wore in England. You feel the unyielding resistance of the wood against your shoulder, its immense weight pressing down, forcing you to lean into the task with every fiber of your being. This isn't simply building. It's a relentless physical struggle against a wilderness that yields nothing easily. You see your fellow settlers, their faces grim with concentration, their bodies bowed with effort. They are a procession of determined labor, hauling, chopping, sawing, their movements stiff from fatigue, but imbued with an almost desperate resolve. The sound of axes biting into timber, the rhythmic scrape of saws, the shouted commands and grunts of effort, these are the sounds of your new world, a symphony of sheer, unadulterated toil. There is no gentleness in this work, no respite. It is raw, brutal, and ceaseless. A child, your own son, no longer playing with the freedom he knew in Holland, carefully carries a small bucket of water to a group of men wrestling a heavy beam into place. His small face is smudged with dirt, his brow furrowed with the seriousness of his task. You feel a surge of fierce protective love, but also a hardening of your purpose. This harsh labor, this unyielding struggle, it is all for them, for the future of this godly kingdom you are raising, splinter by splinter, from the unyielding earth. You reach the building site, dropping the log with a bone-jarring thud. The vibration shoots up your arms, settling into your aching shoulders. You stand for a moment, hands on your hips, surveying the emerging structure. It's rough, unrefined, but it is taking shape. It's a physical manifestation of your will, your collective determination to impose order, to build a sanctuary for your faith, a place where control can be absolute. The pain in your thumb, the ache in your back, the exhaustion that permeates your very being, it all feels like a necessary sacrifice, a crucible in which your conviction is being forged. The relentless ache of your body, the sting of every splinter, it's a constant, visceral reminder that building God's kingdom here is not a gentle act of faith, but a fierce, painful assertion of will, carved from raw nature with bare hands. The relentless sun beats down on your back, scorching through your thin jerkin as you grapple with another heavy split rail. Your hands are raw, calloused beyond recognition, and the sharp, resinous smell of freshly cut pine clings to your skin. You're building fences, stretching lines of rigid geometry across the flowing contours of this wild land, pushing back the endless forest, piece by laborious piece. Each fence post, driven into the unyielding earth, feels like a victory, a small, yet significant, assertion of order against the chaotic wildness. The thud of the mallet against the post reverberates through your arms, a satisfying rhythm that echoes the beat of your determined heart. You taste the grit of dust and sweat on your lips, a constant reminder of the physical cost of this transformation. This isn't just about protecting crops. It's about drawing lines, establishing boundaries, imposing human will on a landscape that seems to defy all such efforts. You glance at the lines you've already laid, stretching in straight, defined angles across what was once an unbroken expanse of trees and undergrowth. The fences are raw, crude, still smelling of the forest they were torn from, but they are asterisk there. They speak of possession, of ownership, of a deliberate, unyielding intent to shape this wilderness into something recognizable, something controllable. You see your fellow settlers, their backs bent to similar tasks, their movements slow and deliberate in the heat. There's a quiet intensity in their work, a shared understanding of the monumental effort required to tame this land. They don't speak much, but their grim concentration, the steady swing of their axes, the determined grunt with each lift of timber, communicates a collective resolve more potent than any words. You catch the eye of a woman straining to secure a crossbar, and she offers a terse nod, a silent acknowledgement of the endless labor. Beyond the new fence lines, the dense green wall of the forest looms, an ever-present reminder of the untamed world just beyond your imposed boundaries. You listen to the distant rustle of leaves, the unseen whispers of creatures, and you feel the raw power of that wildness pushing back, challenging your efforts. It's a constant, almost palpable tension, your rigid, constructed order against the fluid, organic chaos of nature. A bead of sweat stings your eye, and you wipe it away with the back of your hand, leaving a streak of dirt. You look at your hand, rough, scarred, and think of the soft skin of your hands in England. That life feels like a different person, a different world. Here, you are a builder, a shaper, a force imposing design onto chaos. The geometry of these fences, these straight lines in a curved world, feels less like freedom and more like the very definition of control. A steadfast declaration that this land, too, will conform to your vision, your order, your will. The unyielding wood beneath your hands, the straight lines against the wild curves, it's a physical manifestation of an unspoken truth. That to truly establish your kingdom, you must not just live within the land, but impose your will upon it, forcing its wild heart to beat in rhythm with your own determined purpose. The rough, unyielding plank beneath you presses against your bones, a constant, dull ache that settles in your spine and hips. This isn't a cushioned pew in some grand English cathedral. This is a simple, bare wooden bench in your meeting house, deliberately crafted for solemnity, for attention, for enduring a full day of sermons. The air is cold, even in late autumn, carrying the faint, familiar scent of pine, damp wool, and the hushed, almost reverent breathing of the gathered congregation. You shift minutely, trying to find a less painful position, but there is none. Every muscle in your body, accustomed to hard labor, now rebels against this enforced stillness. The long, droning rhythm of the preacher's voice, rising and falling in measured cadences, fills the silence. He speaks of sin, of salvation, of the strict ordinances of God that must be observed in this new chosen land. You feel the weight of his words, the profound gravity of his pronouncements, pressing down upon you just as relentlessly as the wooden plank beneath. You glance around the room, your eyes carefully avoiding lingering too long on any one face. Every head is bowed, every expression a mask of piety and profound seriousness. Children, too, sit perfectly still, their small hands clasped, their eyes fixed on the preacher, or perhaps on the rough floorboards. You see a young boy, no older than your own son, trying to stifle a yawn, his eyelids drooping, and you feel a flicker of both sympathy and stern approval. Even the youngest must learn discipline, learn to endure. The chill in the room works its way through your heavy clothing, a reminder of the raw world outside and the strict, unbending rules within. You taste the faint, bitter tang of boredom and self-denial on your tongue. This is not a place of comfort or indulgence. It is a place of rigorous spiritual exercise, a weekly reaffirmation of the control you have collectively imposed upon yourselves, upon your community. The sermon continues, a steady, relentless flow of scripture and interpretation. You feel the subtle sway of your body, a natural response to the rhythmic drone, and you fight against it, forcing yourself to sit straighter, to concentrate harder. This unyielding hardness of the Sabbath pew, the long hours of silent contemplation and instruction, it isn't just a physical test. It's a spiritual forge, designed to temper the will, to ensure uniformity of thought and behavior, to prevent any whisper of dissent or deviation from the path you have chosen for God's kingdom. The relentless pressure of the wooden bench beneath you, the unending drone of the sermon, it all serves a singular purpose, to imprint upon your very being the unyielding control that defines this new society, a control as hard and uncompromising as the wood itself. Your eyes, weary from hours of fixed concentration, drift. They fall upon a single golden sunbeam, piercing through the small, greased paper window of the meeting house. It strikes the dusty, rough-hewn floorboards, illuminating 1,000 swirling motes of dust dancing in the stillness. The sight is so utterly unexpected, so beautiful in its simplicity, that it catches your breath for a fleeting, forbidden moment. The rich, earthy scent of the wooden room, normally a comfort, now feels heavy, almost oppressive, as the preacher's stern voice continues its measured rhythm. He is speaking of eternal damnation, of the narrow path of righteousness, but your mind, against your will, is drawn to that tiny, vibrant spectacle of light. You feel a pull, a strange lightness in your chest, a momentary escape from the relentless gravity of the sermon. You try to wrench your gaze away, to force your eyes back to the preacher's unmoving face, but the sunbeam holds you. You watch the dust particles, each one a miniature universe, catching the light, sparkling, then vanishing as they fall back into shadow. It feels like a secret, a brief, illicit joy, in a place where joy is often equated with sin, where earthly delights are to be shunned for heavenly focus. The warmth of the sunbeam, even from a distance, seems to promise a different kind of solace than the stern words delivered from the pulpit. You feel a flush of shame creeping up your neck. This is a distraction, a frivolous indulgence, a sinful turning away from God's word. You are supposed to be focused, devout, demonstrating unwavering attention to the spiritual guidance that forms the very bedrock of your controlled community. Yet, the simple beauty of that light, cutting through the gloom, whispers of something primal, something beyond the rigid doctrines you live by. You hear the faint shift of a foot on a nearby pew, a rustle of heavy cloth, and you snap your head up, heart pounding, terrified of being caught. No one seems to have noticed. Every head remains bowed, every face intent, or at least appearing so. You force your own eyes back to the preacher, trying to rekindle your concentration, to banish the image of the dancing dust motes. But the impression lingers. a subtle, sweet defiance within your mind. The sunbeam, a mere trick of light on a dusty floor, becomes a profound challenge to the absolute control you strive to maintain, both within yourself and within this community. It is a whisper of the wild, untamed beauty of the world, a world that refuses to be entirely confined by strict rules and unyielding faith. And for a fleeting moment you tasted that quiet rebellion, that illicit, simple pleasure. The ephemeral dance of dust in a sunbeam, a small, quiet moment of beauty. It becomes a stark reminder that even the most meticulously controlled world still holds pockets of untamed wonder, whispers of a freedom that transcends all human decree. The scorching heat of the hearth blasts against your face, making your cheeks flush crimson and your eyes water. You pull back instinctively, but not far enough. You're kneeling on the rough floorboards, stirring a bubbling pot of stew, the heavy iron ladle a familiar weight in your weary hand. The air in the small cabin is thick with the rich, savory smell of cooking meat and vegetables, a stark and welcome contrast to the bitter chill that seeps in from the gaps in the log walls. A trickle of sweat runs down your temple, despite the cold outside, mingling with the ever-present scent of wood smoke that clings to your hair and clothes. The rhythmic hiss and sputter of the stew, the crackle and pop of the burning logs, these are the constant sounds of your domestic world, a microcosm of controlled warmth and sustenance in the vast, indifferent wilderness. Your back aches, a dull, persistent throb from hours bent over the fire, and your knees protest against the hard floor. You watch your young daughter, her small hands busy grinding corn with a heavy stone, her brow furrowed in concentration. She works with the same quiet diligence you do, her small frame already accustomed to the endless cycle of labor. You feel the silent bond between you, the shared burden and resilience that defines the women of this settlement. Her movements are slow, deliberate, each grind of the stone a small, methodical act of creation, turning raw grain into life-giving meal. The heat from the hearth isn't just a physical sensation, it's a living entity, demanding constant attention, constant tending. Too hot, and the stew will scorch. Too cold, and the family will shiver and sicken. It is the heart of your home, the source of comfort and survival, and its control rests entirely in your hands. You taste the sharp tang of wood smoke on your tongue, an almost constant flavor in your mouth. You glance towards the door, seeing the pale, watery light of the winter afternoon. Beyond that simple portal lies the harsh, untamed world your husbands wrestle with. The endless forest, the demanding fields, the unpredictable native people. But here, within these four walls, centered around this blazing hearth, is your domain. It is a world of ordered tasks, of predictable rhythms, of control meticulously maintained, every meal cooked, every garment mended, every child cared for, is an act of fierce, quiet determination, a building of the inward kingdom, while the men build the outward one. The scorching heat of the hearth, the rhythmic toil, it is all a visceral reminder that even within the confines of domesticity, you are a powerful force, shaping life, asserting order, and maintaining the vital, internal control necessary for this new world to not just survive, but to truly flourish according to your unwavering vision. The coarse fabric of your heavy, dark dress rubs against your skin, chafing slightly with every movement, a constant physical reminder of propriety and humility. You are seated, back straight, hands folded in your lap, in the small, dim meeting house, surrounded by the hushed whispers and solemn faces of the women of the community. The air, though shared, feels thick with unspoken expectations, with the unspoken weight of piety and submission. You feel the eyes of the elder women upon you, their gazes not unkind, but watchful, assessing. They are guardians of the unspoken rules, the subtle nuances of behavior that define a godly woman in this new, controlled society. Your own posture, your quiet demeanor, every small gesture must convey your unwavering devotion, your acceptance of your place. You taste a faint, dry dustiness on your tongue, perhaps from the unventilated air, or perhaps from the carefully muted words you hold back. A younger woman across from you shifts uneasily, her hands fidgeting in her lap, and you feel a flicker of understanding, a shared sense of the physical weight of these expectations. Her eyes, briefly meeting yours, hold a hint of suppressed yearning, quickly hidden. You recognize it, that silent battle within, the struggle to reconcile personal desire with communal demand. You know it well. The low drone of a man's voice, leading a prayer from the pulpit, washes over the room, a soothing balm to some, a further reinforcement of structure to others. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the words wash through you, trying to empty your mind of any stray thoughts, any hint of rebellion against the prescribed order. This is your duty, your path, carefully chosen and fiercely defended. You feel the slight chill that permeates the simple building, a constant counterpoint to the warmth that the hearth at home provides. Here, comfort is not the goal. Spiritual rectitude is. The rough wood of the bench presses against your body, solid and unyielding, a physical testament to the enduring strictures of your faith. Each moment spent here, in this quiet, observant gathering, is a further affirmation of the control that binds you all, a control that offers security and purpose, but at a profound personal cost. The physical weight of your clothing, the watchful eyes, the very air you breathe, it all underscores the demanding nature of piety and submission. It's a constant, palpable presence, shaping not just your actions, but your very spirit, reminding you that true freedom in this land comes only through absolute adherence to the collective will. The air is rich with the smells of roasting fowl, simmering vegetables, and freshly baked bread. A truly magnificent feast, a symphony of aromas you haven't experienced in years. Yet beneath it all, faint but insistent, is the acrid, metallic scent of gunpowder. It clings to the men's clothing, lingers on the periphery of the celebration, a subtle reminder of the ever-present threat. You sit at a long, rough-hewn table, laden with the bounty of the harvest and the forest. The sun is warm on your face, a surprising sweetness after the bitter cold of winter. Around you, laughter and murmurs of contentment fill the air, a joyous cacophony of your people mingling with the softer, more reserved tones of your native guests. Their deerskin garments gleam in the autumn light, a striking contrast to your own dark plain wool. You lift a piece of roasted turkey to your mouth, its savory richness a delight to your starved senses. The taste is incredible, a potent symbol of survival and burgeoning success. Yet as you chew, your eyes subtly scan the edges of the clearing. You notice the muskets propped casually against nearby trees, within easy reach. You see the silent, watchful glances exchanged between your men and the native warriors, a delicate dance of wary respect. The gunpowder scent, though faint, is a constant whisper of readiness, of vigilance, of an unspoken tension beneath the surface of this newfound alliance. You watch your young son, his face smeared with berry juice, laughing openly with a native boy. Their shared joy is pure, unburdened by the complex undercurrents that bind the adults. But even as you smile at their innocence, you feel the persistent prickle of awareness. This peace, this abundance, it feels earned, but also precarious. It's a gift, yes, but one that must be constantly guarded, fiercely protected. A native elder, his face lined with wisdom, catches your eye. He offers a slow, deliberate nod, his gaze deep and unreadable. You return the gesture, trying to convey gratitude, respect, and perhaps a hint of your own unwavering determination. The shared feast is a moment of unity, a testament to cooperation. But you know it's also a strategic gathering, a reaffirmation of the fragile balance of power. The scent of gunpowder, mingling with the rich aroma of Thanksgiving, is not a contradiction. It's the very essence of your presence here. It is the underlying truth of your control, a quiet promise that while you celebrate, you also remain prepared. This feast, this momentary shared peace, is built on a foundation of both gratitude and guarded strength, a testament to the fact that you will protect what you have established, no matter the cost. The rich taste of the feast, the faint, acrid scent of gunpowder, they are two sides of the same coin, representing not just survival, but the fierce, unwavering intention to secure and control this new world and all its bounties for your own. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor runs through the ground beneath your feet as a group of native men arrive, emerging from the forest line with a measured stride. The air is crisp with autumn, carrying the sweet scent of burning leaves and something wild, something untamed, a contrast to the comforting smell of your roasting meats. You feel a familiar tightening in your stomach, a mix of apprehension and calculated resolve. You watch the leader, a man of imposing presence, approach. His gaze is direct, unwavering, assessing. You offer a slight, practiced smile, a gesture of welcome that feels more strategic than genuinely warm. You feel the muscles in your face pull, an unaccustomed exertion to maintain the outward semblance of cordiality. This isn't a celebration of pure friendship. It's a diplomatic exchange, a careful dance of power and necessity. The food is spread across rough-hewn tables, an abundance that speaks of your colony's resilience. You gesture towards the platters, inviting them to partake. You see a subtle nod of approval from the leader, a glint in his eye that suggests he understands the unspoken message of your bounty, that you are not easily broken, that you are here to stay. You taste the tartness of cranberries on your tongue, a flavor both new and refreshing, yet also a symbol of this unfamiliar land you are slowly, deliberately claiming. You catch the eye of one of your own elders, his expression mirroring your own careful calculation. His hands are clasped tightly beneath the table, a silent testament to the underlying tension. The smiles exchanged are polite, perhaps even genial, but they are layered with centuries of different ways of seeing the world, different understandings of ownership, of power. This uneasy truce, solidified by shared food and careful words, is paramount for your survival, for the continued expansion of your controlled settlement. The sounds of shared laughter, of children playing, momentarily soften the edges of the tension, creating an illusion of seamless harmony. But you remain acutely aware of the spaces between the groups, the subtle distinctions in their movements, their postures, their watchful eyes. This is not a merging of cultures, not yet. It is a negotiation, a strategic alliance born of winter's hardship, designed to ensure your long-term success. You take another sip of water, its coolness a brief respite. Your gaze sweeps across the bustling scene, taking in the thriving settlement you have helped build from nothing. The fences, the houses, the cultivated fields, they are all testaments to your will, your unwavering resolve to impose your vision on this new world. The strategic smile on your face, the polite nods, the carefully chosen words, are all tools in this grand design, ensuring that the uneasy truce of today lays the groundwork for the undisputed control of tomorrow. The strategic smile, the uneasy truce, they are but instruments in a larger symphony of control, ensuring that your vision, your order, will ultimately prevail in this challenging, yet ultimately conquerable, land. The sound drifts on the wind carried over the dense pine forest, a burst of unrestrained laughter, followed by the faint rhythmic thrum of a drum. It's light, joyous, utterly scandalous, and it makes the hair on your arms stand on end. You're standing at the edge of your settlement, surveying the newly planted fields, but your gaze is fixed, dark and grim, on the distant direction of Marymount. The crisp, clean air, normally invigorating, now feels tainted by that sound. It's not the sober, purposeful laughter of children at play, nor the rare, quiet mirth of your hard-working adults. This is loud, uninhibited revelry, the kind that smacks of indulgence, of defiance, of utter disregard for the godly order you have painstakingly established. The scent of fresh-tilled earth and burgeoning crops, usually a source of quiet satisfaction, is momentarily overshadowed by the imagined sense of illicit feasting, of unholy revelry emanating from that distant, troublesome place. You feel a knot tighten in your stomach, a familiar surge of righteous indignation. You've heard the tales from the few who have dared to venture near Marymount, tales of drinking, of dancing, of cavorting with the native people, of a maypole raised in defiance of all that is sacred. It's an affront, a festering wound on the pure body of your chosen land. You remember the bitter taste of those early days, the hunger, the cold, the deaths, all endured for a singular purpose, a clear vision of God's true kingdom. And they, those godless revelers, mock it all with their unholy joy. You watch as another settler, a man whose face is etched with similar disapproval, joins you. His eyes too are narrowed, fixed on the distant direction of the sound. He doesn't speak, but you feel the shared outrage, the collective resolve to stamp out this corruption. This isn't merely a different way of life. It's a direct challenge to your authority, to the strict moral code you have instilled. It threatens to unravel the very fabric of control you have so carefully woven. The sun, usually a symbol of God's blessing, now feels too bright, too warm, as if it smiles upon their wicked indulgence. You clench your jaw, your hands tightening into fists. The scandalous sound of laughter, so free and unburdened, becomes a tangible threat, a direct assault on the quiet, disciplined faith that defines your existence. This new world was meant to be a sanctuary, a place where God's will would be absolute, not a haven for such wanton excess. And that laughter, so carelessly flung upon the wind, is a declaration of war against your controlled vision. The scandalous sound of laughter from Marymount, carried on the very air you breathe, is not just noise. It's a living affront, a direct challenge to the meticulous control you have fought so hard to establish in this new world. It demands a response, a clear and decisive reaffirmation of your absolute authority. The sight hits you like a blow to the gut. A towering maypole, stripped bare of branches, rising starkly against the deep green of the forest. draped with garlands and brightly colored ribbons. Around it, a chaotic swirl of figures dances, their movements uninhibited, almost frenzied. You're hidden in the dense undergrowth at the edge of Merrymount, and the visual offense burns into your mind. The air is thick with the scent of pine and something else, a mix of wood smoke, sweat, and perhaps a faint, sweet aroma of spirits. The sounds of raucous laughter, of shouted exclamations, and the rhythmic thump of a drum reach you, raw and unholy. You feel the grit of pine needles digging into your knees as you crouch, trying to remain unseen, your musket held tight against your chest. You watch in disgust as men and women, some from England, some even from your own voyage, openly cavort. Their clothing is loose, some of it brightly colored, a stark contrast to the severe, dark wool you and your people wear. You see them grasping hands, spinning in circles, their faces flushed with what looks like pure, unadulterated joy. But for you, it's not joy. It's an abomination, a direct affront to God and the strict pious life you are striving to build. And then you see them, native people, their deerskin garments mingling with the foreign attire, dancing with the same wild abandon. This is the ultimate transgression, a blending of what you consider pagan ritual with the wanton revelry of these renegades. You feel a cold, bitter taste in your mouth, a mix of anger and profound disillusionment. This is not the clean, controlled society you envisioned, but a grotesque parody of it, a place given over to sin and lawlessness. You clench your teeth, your jaw aching with suppressed fury. This maypole, this symbol of pagan indulgence, standing defiant against the solemn wilderness, is a direct challenge to your authority, to the absolute spiritual and moral control you are bound to uphold. It feels like a festering wound, a stain on the purity of this new land. You turn your head slightly, catching the grim, determined expressions of the men crouching beside you. Their eyes, too, are fixed on the blasphemous scene, reflecting the same righteous anger that boils within you. There is no doubt in any of your minds. This cannot stand. This visual offense, this brazen display of ungodly behavior, must be cleansed. Your vision for this land demands order, discipline, and absolute adherence to God's law. And sometimes, to establish that control, you must act with unyielding force against those who dare to defy it. The pagan maypole, draped in its defiant colors, becomes a living symbol of everything you stand against. Its very existence is a challenge to your imposed order, a visible, intolerable offense that demands swift and decisive action to reaffirm the absolute control you came here to establish. The rough, unyielding wood chafes mercilessly against your bare wrists and ankles, biting into your skin with every slight movement. You're locked in the public stocks, exposed, vulnerable, a stark lesson in communal justice. The morning sun, usually a source of warmth and comfort, now beats down with an almost humiliating intensity on your head, making you squint against its glare. The air smells of damp earth, stale sweat, and the faint, ever-present aroma of pine. You feel the dull ache in your back and neck from the awkward, bent posture. A growing discomfort that will only worsen with each passing hour. The occasional sting of a thrown pebble, the wet splatter of rotten fruit, these are physical indignities, but the worst pain is the searing heat of shame that crawls up your neck, burning your cheeks. You close your eyes for a moment, trying to block out the silent, scrutinizing stares of your fellow settlers. You feel their collective gaze, a heavy, moral weight pressing down on you. It's a judgment, a clear statement that you have transgressed, that you have dared to stray from the narrow path of righteousness and order. You taste the dry, bitter tang of humiliation in your mouth, a flavor that seems to stick to your tongue. When you open your eyes, you see children, their faces solemn and wide-eyed, being led past by their parents. Their expressions are unclouded by malice, only a pure, untainted curiosity. Yet their innocence somehow makes the public spectacle even more piercing. You see their parents, however, their faces grim, their eyes fixed on you with an unspoken warning. This is not just a punishment for you, it is a lesson for them, a stark demonstration of the consequences of challenging the established control. The sound of footsteps on the dusty ground, the distant bleating of sheep, the low murmur of voices, they all seem to amplify your isolation, your profound solitude in this moment of public shaming. You try to shift, to relieve the pressure on your chafed skin, but the stalks are unyielding, designed to hold you fast, to remind you of your helplessness against the communal will. This rough, chafing wood, this public exposure, it serves as a powerful, visceral reminder of the absolute control that governs this society. You came here seeking freedom from one form of tyranny, only to find yourself bound by another, self-imposed, equally unyielding. And in this moment, enduring the physical and emotional discomfort, you understand the depth of that control, the relentless pressure to conform, to submit, to ensure the purity and order of God's chosen kingdom. The chafing wood, the stinging shame, they are but instruments in a larger symphony of control, ensuring that your individual will bends to the collective, reminding you that true liberty, in this land, comes only through absolute adherence to the established order. The sheer, oppressive weight of their collective gaze presses down on you, a crushing, invisible force that feels far heavier than any physical chains. You stand before the assembled community, in the crisp, cool air of the public square, every eye a pinprick of judgment, every face a mask of solemn disapproval. The scent of pine and damp earth, usually a comforting smell of home, now feels sharp, accusatory. You try to meet their eyes, to find a flicker of understanding, a hint of mercy. But there is none. Only the unwavering, uncompromising stare of communal judgment. It strips you bare, exposing every perceived flaw, every misstep, every deviation from the rigid path they have all pledged to walk. You feel the heat of shame rising from within, a blush that burns your cheeks and ears, even as the cool breeze touches your exposed face. The only sounds are the rustle of clothing, the soft cough of a child, and the distant caw of a crow, sounds that, in their normalcy, only highlight the profound abnormality of your predicament. You taste the dry, metallic tang of fear and humiliation in your mouth, a flavor that seems to stick stubbornly to your tongue, refusing to be swallowed. You see your neighbors, the people you've shared hunger with, built homes beside, prayed with. Their faces are unyielding, their expressions stern. They are not merely observing, they are upholding, defending the sacred boundaries of their carefully constructed society. You catch the eye of a woman who once shared a quiet moment of worry with you during the harsh winter. Her gaze is now cool, distant, betraying no recognition, only the hardened conviction of the collective. The silence is the most potent weapon, thick and heavy, punctuated only by the low, authoritative voice of an elder, reading from the strict ordinances of the colony. His words, though delivered calmly, cut like a sharpened blade, reminding everyone of the absolute rules, the consequences of rebellion, the paramount importance of order and conformity. You shift your weight, your feet aching on the hard-packed earth, but the discomfort is a mere whisper compared to the overwhelming burden of their stares. This crushing gaze, this public condemnation, it is designed not just to punish, but to utterly subdue, to break the individual will and ensure absolute adherence to the communal. You came to this new world seeking to establish a specific order, a controlled society built on unwavering faith. And in this moment, under the full, unsparing force of its judgment, you feel the true, uncompromising power of that control. The crushing gaze of communal judgment, it's not just eyes watching you. It's an entire society, a meticulously built system of control, asserting its absolute power, demanding your complete and unwavering submission. The raw, insistent cry of your son pierces the quiet of the twilight forest, tearing at your gut. It's not a tantrum. It's a deep, primal wail of pure terror. You spin around, your heart lurching into your throat, your hand instinctively going to the axe at your belt. You see him, frozen rigid on the forest path, his tiny body trembling violently, his eyes wide and black with unadulterated fear. He's pointing a shaking finger towards the dense, shadowy wall of trees that looms beyond the clearing. The air around you is thick with the damp, earthy scent of the deepening woods, a smell that suddenly feels menacing, imbued with unseen threats. The crackle of leaves beneath your boots, the distant hoot of an owl, they all seem to amplify his terror, feeding into the ancient, silent fear of the wilderness that lives in your own heart. You rush to him, dropping to your knees, pulling him into the rough wool of your cloak. He buries his face against your chest, still shaking, his small hands clutching your jerkin with desperate strength. You feel the frantic beat of his heart against your own, a rapid, uneven rhythm. You try to soothe him, murmuring reassurances, but your words feel hollow, inadequate against the immensity of his fear, against the immensity of this wild land. You taste the metallic tang of your own fear, rising from somewhere deep within you. You scan the forest again, your eyes straining against the rapidly fading light. There's nothing visible, no distinct shape, no sound beyond the normal nighttime whispers of the woods. Yet his terror is real, palpable, an unfiltered reflection of the vast, untamed forces that constantly press against the edges of your carefully constructed settlement. You remember the easy, unburdened play he once enjoyed in Holland, the safety of English fields. Here, even the shadows seem to hold menace, and the rustling leaves become the sounds of unseen threats. You feel the profound vulnerability of his small body, his innocent mind, against the overwhelming power of this wild nature. It's a fear you understand, a fear that you too have learned to suppress, to control, to guard against every single day. You hold him tighter, feeling the lingering tremors. This isn't just a child's momentary fright. It's the raw, unfiltered terror of humanity facing the unknown, the untamed, the uncontrollable. And, in his wide, fear-filled eyes, you see the true, unvarnished face of the wilderness, a force you have come here to conquer, to control, but which still holds an ancient, undeniable power over your fragile hold on this land. The fear in your child's eyes, so raw and pure, It's a visceral mirror, reflecting your own deep-seated anxieties, reminding you that even in your efforts to control this land, its wild heart remains, untamed and watchful, a constant challenge to your dominion. The rhythmic, rote sound of Scripture fills the small, dim cabin, a steady, unwavering drone designed to beat back the encroaching darkness. You sit on the edge of your hard wooden bed, your Bible open on your lap, your finger tracing the familiar words as you speak them aloud, in unison with your wife and children. The air smells of stale wood smoke and the subtle underlying dampness that always seems to penetrate these log walls. Outside, the wilderness presses in. You hear the mournful sigh of the wind through the tall pines, the distant, eerie cry of an unknown bird, sounds that, in their wildness, feel like a challenge to your fragile human presence. But inside, your voices rise, a collective shield against that untamed world. You feel the rough paper of the Bible against your fingertips, a tangible link to divine order, to the absolute truth you believe in. Your son, his fear from earlier still lingering in his wide eyes, now sits upright, mimicking your movements, his small voice joining the chorus of verses. His gaze is fixed on the flickering candlelight, a tiny beacon against the surrounding gloom. You see the effort in his young face, the concentration as he tries to remember the words, the conscious act of holding on to the familiar. You feel a surge of satisfaction, a confirmation that the strict, disciplined upbringing is taking root, instilling the necessary controls. The words themselves, repeated over and over, become a physical presence, a barrier. They are not merely sounds. They are a declaration, an assertion of your unwavering faith, your refusal to be overwhelmed by the raw, untamed forces of nature, or by the unknown inhabitants of this land. You taste the dry, almost chalky taste in your mouth from the prolonged recitation, a small price to pay for the sense of order it brings. You glance at your wife, her face serene, her lips moving silently with the words. Her quiet strength is a constant anchor. You feel the rhythm of the language, an ancient cadence that brings comfort, a sense of belonging to something far larger and more enduring than the small, vulnerable settlement outside. As the last verse is spoken, a profound quiet descends, a peace that feels hard-won. The wilderness outside still whispers its ancient secrets, but for now, within these walls, the power of Scripture has asserted its dominion. It's a spiritual weapon, wielded with daily consistency, designed to control not just your own fear, but the very spirit of this wild land, bending it to your divine purpose. The rote sound of Scripture, a daily ritual, is your most potent tool in beating back nature, not with a sword, but with an unwavering, uncompromising will to impose your controlled vision on every aspect of this new world. The rote sound of Scripture, a daily, unwavering rhythm, it is the constant reaffirmation of your control, a sacred barrier against the wild heart of this land, designed to shape not just your own spirits, but the very essence of the world you are creating. The air in the small, cramped cabin is heavy with the cloying, sickly sweet scent of sickness, a scent you now know intimately. It's overlaid with the sharper yet ultimately ineffective smell of brewing herbal remedies, bitter wormwood, pungent garlic, and faint traces of dried mint. You lean over the feverish form of your daughter, her skin burning hot to your touch, her breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. You feel the frantic flutter of her pulse beneath your fingertips, a terrifyingly rapid beat against your own slow, heavy one. Her eyes are glazed, unfocused, and she whimpers softly, too weak to cry out. A deep, cold dread clutches at your heart, a fear that has become a constant companion in this new world where disease claims lives with terrifying swiftness. You hold a steaming cup of your carefully concocted herbal tea to her lips. The aroma of the herbs fills your nostrils, a bitter, earthy smell that promises healing, yet delivers none. She takes a weak sip, her throat rasping, and some of the liquid dribbles down her chin. You taste the frustration, the helplessness, rising in your own throat, a bitter counterpoint to the remedies. You watch your wife, her face pale and drawn with exhaustion, stoking the meager fire in the hearth. Her movements are slow, deliberate, each action a silent prayer, a desperate act of defiance against the encroaching illness. Her eyes, meeting yours across the dim cabin, hold a shared despair, a profound recognition of your collective vulnerability. You feel the weight of unspoken grief, of lives already lost, of the constant threat that hovers over every member of your fragile community. The low, rhythmic moans of your daughter, punctuated by her gasping breaths, are the only sounds in the room, a haunting melody of suffering. Outside, the world is silent, indifferent to your plight. You remember the comforting presence of a skilled physician in England, the familiar, albeit often ineffective, medicines. Here, you are your own healer, relying on ancient remedies and fervent prayer, desperate for control over the invisible enemy that threatens to unravel everything you have built. You gently wipe the sweat from your daughter's brow, feeling the clammy heat of her skin. This sickness isn't just an illness. It's a constant challenge to your faith, to your resolve, to your very control over this new life. The scent of ineffective herbal remedies, the sight of her suffering, they become tangible reminders of your limitations, of the wild, uncontrollable forces that still rage against your carefully constructed order, even within the confines of your own home. The scent of sickness, the bitter herbs, the rapid, fragile pulse, they are all visceral reminders of the precarious balance of life here, and the constant struggle to assert control against the unseen, untamed forces that can bring even the strongest to their knees. The cabin air is a suffocating blanket, heavy with the scent of feverish sweat and a faint, sweet decay. You lie on your hard straw pallet, your body racked by an intense, burning heat that feels like an internal fire. Your mind is a churning maelstrom of distorted images and terrifying sounds, a waking nightmare that feels indistinguishable from reality. You see faces, contorted and accusing, swimming in the dimness. They are the faces of your fellow settlers, your elders, their eyes burning with condemnation. You hear their voices, a cacophony of whispers and shouts, not speaking words you understand, but conveying a singular message: judgment. The sound of their disapproval feels like a physical blow, a heavy weight pressing down on your chest, stealing your breath. Your tongue is thick, coated with a dry, bitter taste, like ash. Every swallow is a monumental effort. The texture of the rough blanket against your fevered skin feels like sandpaper, abrasive and irritating. You try to move, to escape the torment, but your limbs feel heavy, unresponsive, bound by some unseen force. The ceiling above you seems to spin, the log beams twisting into grotesque shapes, mirroring the chaos within your mind. In the throes of this fever dream, every discomfort, every pain, every imagined accusation feels like a divine verdict. Is this a test? Is this punishment for some hidden sin, some unspoken doubt? The relentless heat in your veins, the pounding in your temples, becomes a tangible manifestation of God's wrath, a stark reminder of your perceived failings. You remember the strict doctrines, the unwavering control preached by your leaders, and now, in this delirious state, you interpret every sensation as a direct consequence of straying from that path. You try to reach out, to grasp at something real, something solid, but your hand flails uselessly in the humid air. The images flicker, faces melting into shadowy figures, their condemning whispers replaced by the distant, mournful howl of the wind outside. It's a sound that seems to mock your weakness, your inability to control even your own body, your own mind. This fever, this agonizing descent into delirium, feels like a profound, personal judgment. It's God's voice, speaking not in Scripture, but in searing heat and terrifying visions, reminding you of the absolute control that must be maintained, both over your soul and over this fragile new world. The dream is not merely a sickness. It's a divine pronouncement, a stark warning that only through unwavering adherence to the righteous path can you hope to survive and truly impose your will upon this land. The burning heat of the fever, the terrifying visions, they are a divine verdict, a visceral reminder that control, even over your own fragile body and mind, is a constant struggle, an eternal battle for righteous dominion. The rough, cold parchment crackles in your hand, its edges sharp against your skin. You stare at the formal script, the familiar names of the English investors, and feel the cold, hard weight of debt pressing down on you. It's a physical sensation, a tightening in your chest, a chilling reality beneath the warmth of the spring sun. You stand in the common house, the air thick with the smell of drying herbs and old timber. The murmurs of your fellow leaders are low, anxious, as they discuss the endless demands from back home. Their faces are grim, etched with the familiar weariness of constant struggle, a battle fought not with axes and muskets, but with ledgers and promises. You taste the dry, bitter dust of frustration on your tongue, a flavor that has become all too common. You run your thumb over the figures on the parchment. Each shilling, each pound, a stark reminder of the financial entanglement that binds your nascent colony. This isn't just about spiritual freedom. It's about economic survival, about satisfying the demands of men who care little for your piety and everything for their return on investment. You remember the opulent homes of those investors, the rich, soft fabrics they wore, a stark contrast to your own threadbare wool and the hard life you've carved out here. Their comfort was built on your struggle. You glance out the small, unglazed window, seeing the bustling activity of your settlement. Men tilling fields, women tending to children, houses slowly taking shape. This is God's kingdom, yes, but it is also a commercial venture, beholden to distant, unforgiving masters. The sounds of industry, the clang of a hammer, the distant cry of a child, the rustle of wind through newly planted corn, they all feel somehow muted by the heavy presence of this debt. A younger man, his face flushed with indignation, slams his fist on the table, his voice rising in frustration. He speaks of the unfair terms, the exorbitant interest, the seemingly endless demands. You feel his anger, a righteous fury that burns bright, but you also feel the cold, heavy weight of reality. There is no escape from this debt, not yet. You need their ships, their supplies, their connections. This cold, hard feel of debt, this tangible proof of your financial obligations, it is a constant, unyielding pressure. It means more labor, more produce, more sacrifice. It means every bushel of corn, every beaver pelt, every fish caught, is not entirely your own. It's a form of control, as insidious and pervasive as any royal decree, shaping your decisions, dictating your priorities, reminding you that even in this wilderness, you are not truly free. You came to establish your own dominion, but even here, the long arm of distant power reaches out, demanding its due. The rough parchment in your hand, the cold, hard weight of debt, it's a stark reminder that even in building God's kingdom, the earthly chains of commerce bind you, forcing you to exert ever more control over your people and your resources to satisfy the relentless demands of a world left behind. The heavy leather-bound ledger thuds softly as you place it on the rough-hewn table, its weight somehow greater than its physical form. You open it carefully, the dry, papery scent of old ink and crisp pages filling your nostrils. This is not your Bible, yet it commands a similar reverence, a similar strict adherence to its pronouncements. You dip your quill, the feather soft against your calloused fingers, and begin to meticulously record the inventory. Every bushel of corn harvested, every beaver pelt traded, every fish salted. Each item is painstakingly entered, a precise accounting of the colony's wealth, its labor, its very survival. The rhythmic scratch of your quill is the only sound in the small, dim cabin, a methodical counterpoint to the distant sounds of the struggling settlement outside. You feel the constant pressure of this task, the immense responsibility resting on your shoulders. These aren't just numbers. They represent the collective effort, the sacrifices, the very lifeblood of your people. One misplaced entry, one overlooked detail, could spell disaster, jeopardizing your fragile existence, and, more importantly, your sacred mission. You taste the dry, almost metallic tang of concentration on your tongue, a flavor that accompanies every moment spent poring over these pages. You glance at the rows of figures neat and orderly, lines of control laid bare. Here, in these columns, is the quantifiable truth of your progress, your dominion over this wild land. It dictates what you can trade, what you can build, how many mouths you can feed. It's a silent, undeniable authority, a practical manifestation of your divine purpose. You remember the sermons on stewardship, on righteous prosperity, and here, in this ledger, is where those spiritual ideals translate into tangible, economic reality. A shadow falls across the page as a fellow elder leans in, his face serious, his eyes scrutinizing the figures. He doesn't speak, but his presence conveys a shared understanding of the ledger's paramount importance. It is a testament to the rigorous self-governance you have imposed, the meticulous control over every aspect of your new world, not just for God's glory, but for financial solvency, for the very ability to continue building your controlled society. You close the ledger with a soft thud, the sound final and resolute. This book, filled with columns and figures, is more than just an accounting of goods. It is a second Bible, a tangible record of your earthly covenant, a testament to the unwavering control you exert over your resources, your labor, your very future. It is the practical foundation upon which your spiritual kingdom stands, demanding devotion and unwavering diligence, ensuring that every effort serves the overarching purpose of absolute, divinely ordained control. The heavy ledger, its pages filled with precise figures, It's a cold, hard truth, a physical manifestation of the rigorous control you exert over every aspect of your new world. A constant reminder that prosperity and divine purpose are inextricably bound, demanding relentless, meticulous adherence. The air is thick, chokingly thick, with the acrid, burning smell of wood smoke and roasting flesh. It clogs your nostrils, making your eyes water and your throat rasp. Above it all, a roaring sound, a terrifying cacophony of musket fire, terrified screams, and the primal shouts of men tears through the early morning stillness. This is the Pequot War, and you are right in the heart of its brutal fury. You crouch behind a thick oak, your musket still warm from its last discharge, the metallic tang of gunpowder fresh on your tongue. Your ears ring with the incessant noise, a relentless assault on your senses. You feel the rough bark digging into your cheek, the damp earth cold beneath your knees. But your body is numb, driven by a desperate adrenaline-fueled purpose. Through the swirling smoke, you see the flickering orange glow of burning wigwams, their flimsy structures erupting in sudden, violent flames. The cries of the Pequot people, rising in pitch and agony, tear through the smoke, a sound that will forever haunt your waking hours. You remember their faces from past interactions, their quiet dignity at the diplomatic feast, and now, here, this brutal, horrifying transformation. You see your fellow men, their faces grim and resolute, moving with a chilling efficiency through the chaos. Their eyes are fixed, unyielding, driven by a conviction that this is God's righteous work, a necessary act to secure your dominion, to remove this threat to your established order. You watch as one man, his face smeared with soot, reloads his musket with practiced speed, his movements devoid of hesitation, fueled by a terrible, cold purpose. A child's scream, shrill and heartbreaking, cuts through the din, and for a fleeting, sickening moment, you picture your own son. You flinch, a spasm of revulsion and a hardening of resolve. This is what it means to build God's kingdom in a wilderness, to assert absolute control. It demands an uncompromising hand, a willingness to erase any challenge, any claim that might undermine your divinely ordained presence. The roaring sound of the battle, the burning smell of the village, it's not just a conflict, it's a cleansing, a brutal act of total dominance. You came here for control, to forge a society where your will would be absolute, and this war, with all its horrific sights and sounds, is the terrible price and the horrifying fulfillment of that unyielding ambition. The stench of victory, mingled with the stench of death, will forever cling to this land. The roaring sound and burning smell of the Pequot War, they are a visceral, unforgettable testament to the ultimate price of absolute control. A grim symphony that echoes the uncompromising will of those determined to establish their dominion in a new and unforgiving land. The acrid, lingering scent of burnt timber and death still hangs heavy in the air, clinging to your clothes and hair, a stark reminder of the recent slaughter. You stand with your fellow leaders in the smoldering ruins of the Pequot village, the ground still warm under your boots, silent and grim. The rising sun casts long, unsettling shadows across the devastation. Your mind is a tempest of conflicting emotions, the horror of the scene, the chilling efficiency of your victory, and the desperate, urgent need to reconcile it with your faith. You watch as a revered elder, his face streaked with soot and weariness, raises his hands towards the heavens. His voice, hoarse from shouting commands in battle, now resonates with a profound, unwavering conviction as he begins to speak. He speaks of God's providence, of the divine hand guiding your muskets, of the righteous judgment visited upon the heathen. His words are a balm to the raw, visceral shock of what you have witnessed, a sacred lens through which the unspeakable is rendered understandable, even necessary. You taste the dry, almost metallic tang of the lingering smoke, but his words offer a different flavor, a spiritual justification that attempts to wash away the bitterness. You look at the faces of the men around you. Some are still pale, their eyes wide with the recent brutality. Others, however, nod slowly, their expressions hardening, accepting the divine interpretation. You see a flicker of doubt in one young man's eyes, quickly suppressed as he meets the stern gaze of an older captain. The need for this collective absolution, this divine sanction, is palpable, a shared spiritual anchor in a sea of blood and fire. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the elder's powerful words wash over you, pulling at the threads of your conviction. This wasn't wanton savagery, you tell yourself, not merely an act of conquest. This was God's will, a necessary step in securing his chosen kingdom, in establishing the absolute control required for its purity and survival. The chilling sounds of the massacre, now fading into memory, are replaced by the comforting, if unsettling, cadence of divine justification. You open your eyes, your gaze sweeping across the still smoking village, then out towards the pristine, untamed wilderness beyond. The silence now is different. It's not the watchful silence of an unknown land, but the hushed quiet of a power asserted, a challenge extinguished. This profound act, this slaughter, becomes inextricably linked to your divine purpose. It is the terrible, bloody foundation upon which your controlled society will rise, justified by Scripture, consecrated by faith, and secured by an uncompromising will. The lingering scent of smoke, the chilling echoes of battle, they are interwoven with the powerful words of divine justification. They remind you that for those who seek absolute control in the name of God, even the most horrific acts can be reimagined as righteous, a necessary step in forging a new, unwavering dominion. The low hum of communal prayer, a familiar, comforting sound, fills the meeting house. Your voice joins the chorus, a steady, unwavering rhythm that feels like the very heartbeat of your controlled society. But then a new sound, unsettling and dissonant, pierces the established harmony. It's a low, almost melodic murmur, a series of unfamiliar words spoken by they, stranger, recently arrived from a less rigid settlement. You feel a subtle tremor of discomfort ripple through the pews. Heads subtly turned, glances are exchanged, faces hardening almost imperceptibly. The air, normally thick with the solemn scent of piety and pine, now carries a faint, acrid tinge of unease, of unspoken judgment. This isn't the familiar, comforting cadence of your Scripture. This is something else, something foreign, something different. You keep your eyes fixed forward, but your ears strain, trying to discern the words, the intent of this new prayer. It feels less like an act of devotion and more like a challenge, a subtle defiance to the absolute uniformity you demand. You remember the broad tolerance of Holland, the easy mingling of faiths, and a bitter taste rises in your mouth, a taste you thought you had left far behind in the old world. Beside you, your neighbor, a man of staunch conviction, shifts on the hard wooden bench, his jaw tightening. You feel his disapproval, a shared sense of righteous indignation. This is not about freedom of worship. It's about the preservation of your worship, your truth, your divinely ordained order. Any deviation, however subtle, threatens the very foundation of the control you have fought so hard to establish. The stranger's voice, though quiet, feels amplified in the hushed reverence of the room, each unfamiliar word a small stone dropped into the calm pool of your collective faith, sending out unsettling ripples. It's a reminder that even in this chosen land, built to be a pure sanctuary, challenges to absolute control can still emerge, not with the roar of a musket, but with the quiet murmur of a different belief. You close your eyes for a moment, trying to reaffirm your own faith, to drown out the unsettling sound with the familiar words of your heart. But the different prayer persists, a quiet, insistent presence, a challenge to the monolithic spiritual control you have so carefully cultivated. This isn't just a sound. It's a test, a question of how far your controlled society will stretch and how much it will bend before it breaks. The unsettling sound of a stranger's different prayer, so quiet, yet so potent, it's a living challenge to the absolute spiritual control you wield. A stark reminder that even in the most tightly woven communities, whispers of dissent can still emerge, threatening to unravel the very fabric of your divinely ordained order. The air in the common room is hushed, thick with the scent of damp wool and old wood, and a faint, almost imperceptible smell of starch from freshly laundered caps. You sit, head bowed, hands neatly folded in your lap, observing the rhythmic rise and fall of collective breathing. It's early evening, and the day's labor is done, replaced by the quiet ritual of contemplation before supper. You feel the weight of countless unseen eyes upon you, not overtly hostile, but constantly watchful. Every settler in this room, every family in this small community, lives under this subtle, pervasive scrutiny. You choose your movements carefully, your posture erect yet modest, your gaze lowered, always mindful of the standards. The rough texture of your plain, dark dress feels like a second skin, a uniform of conformity that offers both anonymity and constant reminder. You taste the dry, almost bland air, a mirroring of the emotional landscape. Across the room, a young woman lets her gaze wander for a fraction of a second, too long towards the window, where the twilight offers hints of the wild world beyond. You see an elder woman beside her subtly clear her throat, a soft, almost imperceptible sound. Yet it's enough. The young woman's head snaps back, her eyes immediately fixing on her lap, a faint blush creeping up her neck. You feel that blush in your own cheeks, a vicarious shame, a recognition of the silent, swift correction. This is how it works here. Not with shouted reprimands, but with quiet gestures, with the suffocating pressure of collective expectation. The only sounds are the crackle of the hearth fire, the distant, muffled lowing of cattle, and the soft creak of the building settling. No loud conversations, no boisterous laughter, no spontaneous outbursts. Everything is contained, measured, controlled. You recall the vivid, chaotic freedom of the Dutch port, the riot of colors and sounds, and a fleeting, almost rebellious thought stirs within you. But it's quickly suppressed, pushed down, buried beneath layers of duty and self-discipline. You shift, just slightly, on the hard wooden bench, feeling the familiar ache in your back. This quiet, constant pressure to conform, to be indistinguishable from your neighbors in piety and conduct, is the very essence of your community. It's what keeps the fragile order intact, what ensures the purity of the godly kingdom you are building. It's the price of security, the cost of belonging. And it's a burden you carry, day in and day out, with unwavering resolve. The persistent scent of starch, the hushed breathing, the constant watchful eyes, they are all threads in the tightly woven tapestry of conformity. This silent, suffocating pressure, it is the invisible hand of control, ensuring that every soul, every thought, remains perfectly aligned with the rigid, unwavering vision of this new world. The scent of wood smoke and simmering stew fills the cabin, a familiar, comforting aroma. You stir the pot, the heavy iron ladle scraping rhythmically against the bottom, preparing the simple evening meal. But then, as you add a pinch of a precious, carefully hoarded spice, a ghost taste, sharp and fragrant, blooms on your tongue. It's cinnamon, a flavor you haven't truly tasted in years, and it transports you instantly, unexpectedly. For a fleeting moment, you're not in the rugged New England wilderness. You're back in a bustling English market, the air thick with the rich, exotic scents of the spice stalls, the clamor of voices, the vibrant colors of silks and fine goods. You remember the warm, sweet comfort of a pastry, spiced just so, a small indulgence from a life that feels impossibly distant now. The memory is so vivid, so potent, that it brings a sudden, surprising ache to your chest. You feel the rough, familiar texture of your wool dress against your hands, a stark contrast to the imagined silk. The sounds of your children's quiet murmurs, the crackle of the hearth, these everyday realities of your new life, seem to recede. For a heartbeat, only that ghost taste, that phantom flavor of England exists. It's a bittersweet sensation, a longing for a world you deliberately left behind, yet still carry within you. You glance at the small, tightly wrapped parcel of spices, carefully tucked away in a corner of your cupboard. Each pinch is a precious commodity, a relic of the old world, hoarded and rationed. These are not merely flavors. They are connections, echoes of a past, reminders of a different kind of life, a life less rigidly controlled, perhaps even one of quiet indulgence. You shake your head subtly, forcing the fleeting memory away. This is your life now, this hard-won existence, built on discipline, self-denial, and unwavering purpose. This new world demands your full attention, your complete dedication to its controlled order. The simple, plain food you prepare, the lack of exotic flavors, it is all part of the necessary sacrifice, the forging of a purer, more godly society. You stir the stew again, the scent of cinnamon now fully diffused, mingling with the earthy aroma of root vegetables. The ghost taste fades, replaced by the familiar, wholesome flavor of your present reality. Yet, the memory lingers, a faint whisper of what was, a subtle reminder that even in a world meticulously controlled by faith and duty, the human heart still holds echoes of long-forgotten comforts, tastes of a past that occasionally surface, challenging the absolute dominion of the present. That ghost taste of a long-forgotten English spice, so fleeting yet so vivid, it's a tiny, potent reminder that even in the most controlled of lives, the human spirit holds on to fragments of a past, whispers of a world left behind, subtly challenging the absolute dominion of the present. The chill of the autumn air seems to sharpen your memory, bringing back a faint, acrid scent of damp prison stone and the metallic tang of fear. You sit in the meeting house, your body accustomed to the hard wooden bench, but your mind is miles away, back in the shadow of England's persecution. The preacher's voice rises and falls, not in a gentle cadence, but in a stern, impassioned recounting of past trials. He speaks of fines, of imprisonment, of the harsh hand of the king's church, all aimed at those who dared to worship differently. You feel the knot in your stomach, a familiar tightening of old fear, as his words paint vivid pictures of suffering endured for the sake of your faith. It's a powerful, almost physical sensation, the memory of that raw vulnerability. You glance around the room, at the faces of your fellow settlers. Their expressions are solemn, many of them nodding in grim recognition. You see the elder men, their eyes burning with renewed conviction, recalling their own personal sacrifices. You see the younger generation, their faces wide-eyed and attentive, absorbing these tales of righteous persecution. This isn't just history, it's a living lesson, a potent tool. You taste the dry, almost dusty air of the meeting house, a flavor mingled with the bitter taste of memory. The preacher's voice grows stronger, his message clear. This suffering was endured so that here, in this new land, you could build a pure, unblemished society. A society where such persecution would never again touch your people, because here, you are in absolute control. Any deviation, any challenge to the strict order you have established, is a betrayal of that past suffering, a step back towards the tyranny you fled. You feel a subtle shift in the communal atmosphere, a tightening of resolve, a hardening of purpose. The memory of past persecution is not simply a historical fact. It's a constant, living narrative, actively wielded to enforce present conformity. It justifies the strict laws, the unwavering discipline, the absolute control over every aspect of life in this colony. It's the ultimate argument against any form of dissent, any whisper of a different path. As the preacher concludes, a profound, almost tangible silence falls over the room. The memory of persecution, so vividly evoked, now feels like a physical barrier, a protective wall around your community, ensuring its purity, its unwavering adherence to the chosen path. It is the ultimate justification for the control you wield, a perpetual reminder that the freedom you sought was not for all, but for your specific righteous way of life, fiercely guarded and meticulously enforced. The memory of persecution, evoked so powerfully, it's not just a story from the past, it's a living force, a potent weapon used to sculpt the present, to enforce absolute control, reminding everyone that the dangers of the old world are best averted by an unyielding, unified adherence to the new order. The wind, crisp and clean, whips around you as you stand atop the hill overlooking your settlement. You feel the rough, familiar earth beneath your sturdy boots, a testament to its enduring solidity. Your gaze sweeps across the landscape, stretching towards the horizon, and a profound sense of pride swells in your chest. This isn't the wild, untamed wilderness you first encountered. This is a tamed horizon, shaped by your unwavering will. Below you, the orderly rows of houses, their timber walls weathered by sun and storm, form a neat pattern. Beyond them, the geometric precision of your field stretches out, green with burgeoning crops, a stark contrast to the chaotic forest that still looms in the distance. The fences, once crude and vulnerable, now stand strong and tall, delineating ownership, asserting boundaries, imposing human order on the natural world. The air carries the comforting sense of wood smoke, tilled earth, and the distant, reassuring aroma of baking bread. You hear the faint, rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the distant bleating of sheep, the muted voices of children at play. These are the sounds of a thriving, controlled community, a testament to years of relentless labor and unwavering faith. Gone are the haunting silences, the fearful whispers of the early days. Now the sounds are those of purposeful industry, of a dominion established. You think of the vast, silent wilderness you first faced, a force that seemed determined to consume you. And now, from this vantage point, you see your triumphant defiance. You have carved out a kingdom, not just a dwelling, from its heart. You taste the clean, invigorating air, a flavor of victory, of accomplishment. A fellow elder stands beside you, his gaze also fixed on the view. He doesn't speak, but his slight nod, the almost imperceptible straightening of his shoulders, conveys a shared sense of immense satisfaction. This isn't just a place to live, it's a living testament to your mission, a tangible manifestation of God's blessing upon your unwavering pursuit of a pure, controlled society. Your hand, rough and calloused, rests on the wooden hilt of your sword, a constant reminder of the vigilance still required. The tamed horizon, though beautiful in its order, still borders the wild. But from this hill, looking out at the meticulously arranged world you have forged, you feel the undeniable power of your collective will, the profound satisfaction of having imposed your vision, your control, upon this land. The view from the hill, the sight of that tamed horizon, it's a powerful, tangible symbol of triumph. It speaks not just of survival but of mastery, of the unyielding will to bend a wild land to your purpose, to establish absolute control, a testament to your unwavering faith and relentless labor. The soft, rhythmic scratch of a quill on parchment is the only sound in the small, warm study, a sound that feels disproportionately profound. You sit at a heavy wooden desk, the light of a flickering tallow candle illuminating the page. The air is thick with the scent of old paper, fresh ink, and a faint, sweet aroma of beeswax from the polished wood. You dip the quill again, its feather brushing lightly against your fingers, and continue to write. These are not merely observations or accounts of daily life. These are carefully chosen words, crafted sentences, designed to shape a narrative. You are meticulously recording your journey, your struggles, your triumphs. But you are doing more than just documenting history. You are forging a myth. You remember the cold dread of descent, the bitter taste of hunger, the roaring sound of battle. These raw, visceral experiences are being carefully distilled, refined, and recast into a grand, inspiring story. The harsh reality of absolute control, of unyielding discipline, of violent conquest, is softened, transformed into a narrative of courage, divine purpose, and the pursuit of pure freedom. You taste the dry, almost metallic tang of the ink on your tongue, a flavor that hints at the power of the written word. You recall the arguments, the internal divisions, the human frailties that plagued your early days. Yet in these carefully chosen phrases, all that messy truth is smoothed over, presented as a united, unwavering front. You are painting a picture of a people driven solely by faith, seeking only liberty, forging a beacon of righteousness in the wilderness. You pause for a moment, examining a newly formed sentence. Does it convey the necessary gravity? Does it inspire the proper reverence? You are writing for posterity, for the generations yet to come, and the story you tell will shape their understanding, their very identity. This ledger, this chronicle, is your ultimate tool of control, not just over the present, but over the future. The quill moves again, another word carefully chosen, another phrase meticulously polished. This is how nations are built, not just with axes and plows, but with words, with narratives, with carefully constructed myths that elevate actions to a higher purpose. The sound of your pen, scratching softly in the quiet study, is forging more than a history. It's forging the very soul of a nation, carefully controlling its foundational truth. The rhythmic scratch of a pen on parchment, so quiet, yet so immensely powerful, it's the sound of a myth being born, a narrative meticulously crafted to control understanding, to shape identity, to ensure that the foundational truth of a nation aligns perfectly with the unwavering vision of its founders. The cold, rough touch of granite greets your fingertips as you trace the worn letters on the gravestone. It's an ancestral marker, generations old now, but the name carved into its surface is one you recognize, one woven into the very fabric of your family's history. The spring air is cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and new growth, but a chill permeates your bones that has nothing to do with the weather. You stand in the ancient burying ground, surrounded by a silent legion of those who came before. The gravestones, some barely legible, others stark and severe, stand in orderly rows, a testament to the enduring presence of your lineage in this land. You feel the profound weight of their legacy, the burden of their sacrifices, pressing down on you like the earth itself. Each stone whispers of a life lived, a struggle endured, a purpose pursued with unwavering, sometimes brutal, resolve. You feel the slight unevenness of the ground beneath your feet, made sacred by the countless dead. The only sounds are the rustle of leaves in the distant trees, and the faint, mournful cry of a bird, sounds that seem to carry the echo of ancient sorrows, ancient victories. You taste the dry, almost earthy flavor of history on your tongue, a solemn reminder of the deep roots you have in this place. You recall the stories of your ancestors, tales of hardship, of fervent faith, of the unyielding desire to create a pure, controlled society. The narratives, honed and refined over generations, speak of freedom from persecution, of divine purpose, of a new beginning. But as your hand rests on the cold stone, you also feel the unspoken truths beneath those polished stories. The fierce assertion of will, the brutal conquest, the relentless imposition of their vision on a wild land and its native people. You look at the surrounding landscape, now a thriving, prosperous colony, a testament to that unyielding vision. The gravestones are not just markers of individual lives. They are pillars of a grander narrative, symbols of a collective identity built on struggle, sacrifice, and absolute control. The cold stone, unchanging and permanent, silently demands that you too uphold that legacy, that you continue to exert the same unwavering control to preserve the society they died to create. The rough, cold touch of the ancestral gravestone, it's a tangible link to a powerful past, a silent command from generations gone by. It reminds you that the freedom they sought was inextricably tied to their absolute control, and that this legacy, however complex, must be fiercely maintained to honor their enduring, unyielding purpose. The crisp, clear air of the modern day surrounds you, carrying the faint, metallic scent of exhaust fumes and the distant hum of traffic. You stand in a bustling public square, surrounded by towering glass and steel buildings, a world utterly transformed. Yet, as you listen, you hear it, an enduring echo of control, subtly woven into the fabric of modern voices, modern pronouncements. You hear a politician's impassioned speech, his words carefully chosen, resonating with themes of order, discipline, and the preservation of a certain way of life. He speaks of freedom, yes, but you feel the subtle undercurrent, the implied demand for conformity, the silent warning against deviation. It's a familiar resonance, a cadence that harks back to the sermons of your ancestors, repackaged for a new age. You taste the dry, almost bland air of civic rhetoric, a flavor that masks deeper intentions. You watch the faces of the crowd, some nodding in agreement, some looking skeptical, but many simply accepting, absorbing the message. There's a quiet power in their collective assent, a subtle pressure to align with the prevailing narrative. You recall the crushing gaze of communal judgment, the silent force that once enforced conformity in your small colony. And you see its modern analog, less overt but no less potent. The sounds of sirens wail in the distance, a stark reminder of order maintained, of boundaries enforced. You see advertisements flashing on towering screens, promoting a particular vision of success, of happiness, of belonging. These are the new fences, the modern forms of control, shaping desires, dictating norms, subtly guiding behavior towards a predetermined path. You feel a flicker of recognition, a profound understanding spanning centuries. The specific language has changed. The technology is vastly different, but the underlying human impulse remains. The desire to establish, to maintain, to control a certain order, a certain truth for the good of the collective. It's a powerful legacy, deeply ingrained. You take a deep breath, the modern air filling your lungs. The enduring echo of control, present in these modern voices, these contemporary messages, is a testament to the long shadow cast by those first settlers. They built not just houses and fields, but a foundational idea that for a society to thrive, it must be meticulously shaped, its members guided, its purpose meticulously defined. And you, in this present moment, stand witness to the enduring power of that vision, still subtly, yet powerfully at play. The enduring echo of control in modern voices, the subtle undercurrents beneath grand pronouncements. It's a living testament to the powerful, shaping legacy of those who came not just for freedom, but for the unwavering, absolute control of their chosen world.